Hi, Phil here from Wild About Dogs, and today I've got a very, very special guest who has kindly agreed to be interviewed because I've received so many questions on the Wild About Dogs website about, the benefits of natural food versus commercial dog food. So I'm absolutely delighted today to have Sarah Wadleigh from SummerSunHerbals.com with us today, who's a herbalist and nutritional consultant for people, dogs, and cats. So, hi, Sarah. Thanks for joining us today.
Hi, thanks.
Sarah, it's great to have you here. And could I just ask you a few questions? Would you mind?
Sure thing.
Okay, thanks, Sarah. Well, I know you're really big into the whole food. So can I ask that, what makes a whole food diet so desirable for dogs?
I think the most important factor about whole foods is that it's digestible food. In the wild, dogs would never cook their food or heat it in any way. And okay, so our dogs that we have today are domesticated, and I think they're probably more flexible than the wild animal would be if we captured a wild wolf and wanted to feed it. But at the same time, their digestive systems are designed to digest food really quickly because it's a much shorter digestive system than we have. And so the food we feed them needs to be super digestible, bioavailable, and provide all of their nutrients that they need with no extra fillers or weird ingredients that are often found in commercial foods.
And thanks for that, Sarah. I mean, there is a lot of weird and wonderful ingredients, isn't there? I mean, I've had all sorts of horror stories about what commercial dog manufacturers could potentially put into dog food. I'm not saying it goes into the commercial dog food, but there is quite a lot of should we say unnatural things being put in, isn't there?
Oh yes, I worked in the pet food industry for a number of years, and I've probably spoken to thousands of people about the health of their dogs and cats, and so many of the problems, I would say 90% of the health issues that we heard about were directly related to processed food, dry and canned food. And I don't know if you guys over there had the recall of the food with the toxic stuff where so many animals died. This happened, I think, in 2007 here in the U.S. I mean, animals were dying everywhere because of some products that were put in by a co-packer, and that's what they continually kept blaming the problem on, were that they were putting in unauthorized ingredients in the dog food. So I mean, there are recalls all the time. It just doesn't get publicized the way that huge recall did because it affected so many foods. So while I was working at this particular job, that's when I stopped feeding dry food. I had been feeding an organic dry food that had fabulous ingredients, but when I started thinking about it, I'm like, okay, so they take blueberries and meat and all these vegetables and things, and then they just bake them into oblivion until they're like crunchy and brown and have a shelf life of infinity probably. And then one of the bags of food that I had been feeding got recalled. And I'm like, okay, that's it. I am never feeding dry food again. And I went to a whole food diet. And the telling tale was both of my dogs looked and felt fabulous once I made the switch. I mean, you could see the difference written all over them. And then when I started adding other nutrients, like making sure the essential fatty acids and the vegetables, I started making green supplements, and it was like a miracle. It was amazing. And so I really recommend it. And I've heard so many stories, you know, thousands of them, where the dogs either wouldn't eat their dry food, or they were picky eaters, they didn't feel right, or were even worse, dogs that had chronic digestive problems, bad breath, dental issues. I've even talked to people whose dogs were vomiting blood because the food wasn't agreeing with them. They switched overnight to like a raw or a whole food diet, and the problems resolved like almost immediately. It's kind of a miracle, really.
Wow, that's incredible. And you mentioned that 90%. I certainly didn't realize it was as high as that. And you're quite right about the product recalls as well. I mean, I put something on our website that there was a product recall only last week from a well-known dog food manufacturer who'll remain nameless in this interview anyway. And it must happen all the time. So listen, hey, that was brilliant. Thanks for that. So I've had a lot of people ask as well, Sarah, about what is a species appropriate diet for a dog? Could you maybe help us out with that, please?
Sure, that's a really important part of the whole process when you switch over to whole foods, and that is they need muscle meat, organ meat, bones, and vegetable matter. And that can be, fruits, vegetables, greens are super healing. So there's some really great resources online that talk about the correct proportions of things. But the thing to remember is that every meal doesn't have to be like the perfect proportion, as long as throughout the week or even the month your dog gets all these factors, because in the wild that the dogs, the canines, do eat all of the animal. They eat the organ meat, the muscle meat, and the bone, and those are all things that have minerals and vitamins and nutrients that are super important, actually vital for canines, even little dogs.
Oh, okay. All right. And you mentioned as well that it should be a combination of organs and the entire animal, but also greens as well. So I mean, how often should I get my dog to eat greens?
I think I give my dogs greens every single day. Oh. I think they're one of the most healing foods that you can give. They do so many things. First of all, they're loaded with vitamins, minerals, all the trace minerals. If you're feeding an assortment of greens, are going to be in there. And minerals are super important for all the functions that happen in the body. And they're loaded with enzymes. Enzymes are super important too. So all of the above, those are all reasons to give greens, and to give them often, every day.
Okay, and I'm going to put you on the spot here, Sarah, if you don't mind now. You mentioned the greens. Now, I can imagine people are watching this interview now, which is brilliant, incidentally. Thank you. And they're saying, okay, well, what sort of greens? I'm cooking the family dinner, as we call it here in the UK. I'm cooking the family dinner, and I'll have some leftovers. What sort of leftovers should I keep for our dog, for example?
Oh, that is a great question. So for example, if you're making pesto and you're chopping up your greens, you can save the stems of the cilantro or the basil or just save a little extra of all of the greens that you're using. When I make pesto, I put so many things in it, like I use violet leaves and all kinds of stuff because I just grow all those kind of things. But if you're just making your pesto, or your even like a green salad or anything, you can just save some extra, put it off to the side, and then you can run it through the food processor and keep that in a jar in the refrigerator and just spoon it out and add like a tablespoon of the raw greens to your dog's food each day. And that would be fabulous. I mean, you'll notice a difference right away when you start doing that. It's kind of a miracle, really.
That's Sarah. That's brilliant, and what great advice. I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna do that today anyway. You know, I'll be cooking dinner soon anyway, so I'm gonna do just that. I'm gonna get the food processor out and prepare some for Buster, our Labrador, and Susie, our little Shih Tzu, as well. So they can both tuck into their greens together. So thanks very much for that.
Sure. And some dogs like to eat greens whole. I mean, my dog will eat like Brussels sprouts and pieces of cabbage. She likes carrots, apple pieces, berries are really good for dogs. So pretty much the sky's the limit as far as greens and vegetables. Some of the root vegetables, I give my dog cooked sweet potatoes and things like that, but she would probably eat them raw too. Mm-hmm. So for greens, raw is better, and then for root vegetables, either way, whatever your dog decides to like is what you can feed them.
Fabulous, and I would imagine like everything, Sarah, it's to start off in small moderations. Yeah, don't change the diet too radically.
Well, it kind of depends. I mean, if you're feeding your dog a dry food and it's not really working for them, if they have digestive problems, or they get chronic ear infections, if you have some kind of repeated, or if they itch, or they rub their faces on the carpeting after they eat a meal, that's telling you that something's not quite working with that. Oh. And so for those kind of situations, I would just switch overnight to a whole food diet of just like, you know, if you want to feed, you know, chicken and greens. You could, I mean, for little dogs especially, it's pretty easy to feed just real meat and vegetables. And I think raw food is good for some dogs. I think raw greens and vegetables are always the rule of thumb for greens to be raw or dehydrated. But the meat can be cooked. Or you can go to a raw or freeze-dried food. And I actually have a little jar of this freeze-dried food that I feed. One of the things that I feed my dog, it's called Sojo's Complete. And so here it is in dry form. It's got the meat and it's got carrots. I think it has sweet potatoes and it has some greens in it. And so all you do, it's so easy to fix, is you just add water, fill up the jar with water.
Hey, brilliant.
And you just let this sit for about 30 minutes, and it becomes this super yummy meal that's pretty much complete. I still add fresh greens to that, but you could totally serve that as a complete meal and done. It's a really, and my dog loves it. In fact, I have never met a dog that didn't really like this food.
That's fabulous. I've never seen anything like that.
Oh, yeah. So it'll fill up this whole jar. It'll absorb all the moisture, and so your dog's getting a nice, yummy, moist meal with real vegetables and meat that's just, you know, rehydrated.
Oh, that's wonderful. Okay, we must try something like that. And did you say can you buy that? Sorry, I missed that. Or do you have to make that up yourself?
You can buy it. There are so many really amazing dehydrated foods that are available that are so easy to prepare. It's just amazing. And I actually have a bunch of them listed on my website. If you go to the dog and cat page, I have a short list of the dehydrated foods and then some other information in case your dog has some kind of imbalance. I have some remedies that I've seen work miracles for those particular imbalances that I have listed on that page on my website.
Oh, that's fabulous, Sarah. And that was going to be my next question anyway. Is you've sort of answered that. So listen, Sarah, thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate it, and I'm sure a load of the viewers will really appreciate it too. So if viewers did want to get in contact with you and to find out more about whole foods, how can they do that, Sarah?
They can they can go to my website, or they could email me at sarah@summersunherbals.com.
Fabulous. So Sarah Wadleigh from summersunherbals.com, I want to thank you so much. I really appreciate your time, Sarah.
Thank you for the opportunity. I always love talking about whole foods for dogs because it's a miracle.
Well, I'm gonna try Buster and Susie on them, so I'll keep you posted. Thanks very much indeed, Sarah, and have a great day.
Okay, you too. Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.